Welcome to The Longer Game. If you're listening to a show about retail being reimagined. If you'd like to connect with The Longer Game, look for The Longer Game at thelongergame.com and on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn at The Longer Game. We're here to talk about retail, why it's changing, how it's changing, and what you can expect in the future. We're not trying to take ourselves too seriously, but we do want to know what that retail landscape is going to look like. I hope you enjoy your time listening to this podcast. We try to keep it as quick as possible because we don't want to waste your time, but we want to keep you informed. Thanks for tuning in. Now, here's the show. All right, you have stepped into The Longer Game. I don't know if you've actually stepped into anything, but this is The Longer Game where we talk about retail. We talk about how retail has changed. We talk about anything retail. And I have a good friend of mine here. Her name is Rachel Jacobs, and she owns Ecommerce Partnerships. She also owns a lot of other things, and she does a lot of stuff. So I'm going to let her talk about that. Welcome, Rachel. Tell us about all the incredible things that you do.
Hey, Michael, thanks for having me. So I specialize in e-commerce agencies. I used to did brand side, did e-commerce tech side, and then went to the dark side and joined an e-commerce agency. And after doing that for about 5 or so years, maybe a bit more, I then left and built up my own business, which is specialized in helping agencies scale quicker. So I've worked with 60 e-commerce agencies now as sort of a fractional interim COO, and consulted with over 600 in about 2.5 years. So it's been a lot. It's been a lot of conversations. Obviously, COVID has helped. And I just eat, sleep, and breathe the e-commerce industry as it pertains to agencies, which is how...
So you basically had a lot of downtime in the past 2 years is what you're saying.
Quarantine, Jesus. And I relocate. I mean, as you know, I relocated. I moved country. I moved from Ireland from Dublin to a Spanish island. And then 3 days later, we went into a national state of emergency and we were locked down, like a hard military rule lockdown for 11 weeks. So it's just like, what else am I going to do? All of my face-to-face workshops that I had planned for Q2 2020 were done. So I just like kind of pivoted through default and did it online. And just then all of the agencies were like, oh shit, we need to get retainers in place. Can you help us?
So that was a big change for business in general.
Huge for the industry, because when COVID hit, obviously, like a lot of people weren't investing money in projects. I had one agency that lost, I think in the space of like 2 or 3 days, in a week for sure, but I think over a couple of days, lost $250,000 off their pipeline of new business. Man. That just, like, it was all business.
$250,000 for the year?
No, in their pipeline. That was due to drop that $250,000 of business projects that had been signed, and they just pulled the plug and were like, we're not investing anything right now. We don't know what's happening.
Did you intentionally, so you moved to Grand Canary, did you intentionally move there because of a lot of the face-to-face things that you do, that it would be cool to have those there? Or what was that? What was the reason for initially moving there? Just change of pace?
No, the reason for moving there is, to be honest, the reason we moved here is because of my husband. He's from Nigeria. So we were in Ireland we met in London and then moved to Ireland, and it's fucking cold. Like, he was nearly as white as me after being there for like 6 or 7 years. So for him, he was just like, we moved in 2013, and then 2016, I think he kind of said like, I can't freeze my ass off. Yeah. So he's like, we looked at a few different countries, and then about a year later of him, because he's like a super planner, right? He plans everything. And about a year later, I came back from a trip, because I travel a lot with business. I have done for a long time. So usually every 2 weeks, I'm away somewhere. I'm traveling somewhere all the time. And I remember coming home, and he's like, yeah, we need to talk. And I'm like, oh, fuck, what have I done?
I hope we're still together.
Yeah, exactly. You still be my friend, please. And then he told me this plan. He told me about Grand Canary, and I was like, I don't really know what that means. And then he told me, and I was just like, okay. And he goes, I've been researching this and planning this for like 6 months, and I feel like it's a good move for us, and like we'll have to learn Spanish. And I'm like,
wait, he had been planning it for 6 months, and you didn't know?
I didn't know.
Wow.
No, of course not.
Because he was such a planner.
And he's one of these like master planners. He's an investor, right? So it's like he's used to like.
That's how my wife is. She's a planner. We have trips planned for the next year.
Oh my God, we have a Google document that I don't even look at because it would make me nervous. But it's like the next 20 years planned out.
Oh well, see, I don't even have whatever document.
I don't even know what's happening for the next 20 hours. Yeah, I don't even know what's happening
right?
for the next 20 hours. I'm just like, let me just get to my next meal and stay alive, and then get to
Yeah.
tomorrow and stay alive, and then
Well, I think you probably make a good combo for each other
sure.
because he needs probably more excitement. He's got everything planned out. He's expecting things
And
to
he just
happen, and
needs
you got to bring a
somebody who
little bit
is
of excitement.
just like freestyle. So he's like, let's go here.
Super
I'm just like,
malleable.
okay, let's go. That's cool. Whatever you want. And I think that he's in fact,
I have the best vacations because I like showing up and just kind of doing whatever. But my wife has gone ahead and planned. She knows like the top 3 coffee shops, the top 5 restaurants, and the 3 best things at those places. So when we wake up in the morning, I'm like, let's go to coffee. And she's like, yeah, okay, let's go to this place. I'm like, that sounds great. We show up and she's like, get this thing. And I'm like, man, this vacation's incredible. And we're just kind of winging it. But really, it's been planned really,
yeah,
really
that's
well.
basically been the last 10 years of my life.
I've actually heard. So I'm a big Prince fan. I
Yeah.
don't have my typical Prince memorabilia up behind me
Mm.
just yet, but I heard him say that if you want to perform a really good solo, practice it so you'll know what you're
Mhm.
doing. And so I think that maybe your husband and my wife know what it means to have good trips or just good things in general because they practice it. And so maybe I need to get on that bandwagon.
Yeah, but you have some people that their life is all about the destination, and other people their life is about the journey. And I think the people that love to plan, it's about the destination of where you're going. I don't really care where I'm going. It's all
You
about
just
the
want to be
journey.
anywhere.
Yeah, I don't really care. So that's kind of what happened. And he told me, and at the time I was COO of this leading Shopify Plus agency. So we had planned to move, and then things had changed, and there was a few internal stuff. So we put the move off a year, and then the following year, like, okay, 2018, it's not a good time to move. The next year we'll move. And by that time, I kind
Okay.
of knew that it was coming to the end of the road for me. I'd done what I needed to do there, and it was like
Okay.
next steps. And I knew that next steps for me were not going to involve another company. It was going to be myself. And then it just all just happened really quickly. So by the time then I left, I didn't really have a clear idea of what I was doing. And then I was like, okay, we want to move this year, but we need to get I need to get my shit together. And then built this business. And by the end of that year, so it was like 6 or 8 months later, then we were like freezing our ass off over Christmas in Dublin. And we just looked at each other and we're like, fuck this. Let's just let's just
Yeah.
go. Let's just go and visit the place and see if we like it. Let's just see if
Well, in Gran Canaria, I had to look this up. It's technically a Spanish island, but it's more off the coast of Africa, isn't it?
yeah, it's like 150 miles, I think, west of Morocco. Like we get a lot
Okay,
of
yeah,
like the Archipelago, so the group of 7 islands. I think there's 8 now, a new one has been added. But the group of islands that we have, it's like below Portugal, but off Morocco. So it's like I
okay,
think it's 3.5, 4 hours to Spain, and it's technically a Spanish island. But even here, the people, it's a really Latin American vibe. There's a lot of like
okay.
Latinos here. So that the vibe is really cosmopolitan, and some of them they do consider themselves Spanish, but a lot of them when they meet my husband, they're like, "Ah, where are you from?" And he's like, "Africa," and they're like, "I'm African too, brother," and I'm like, "You're a little old white man.
Not really.
You're a tiny old white man with a massive beard. You're
That's how I tell people I'm from Africa here too, and then I'm like, well, technically everyone kind of came from there at
sure.
some
Why
point,
not?
so whatever.
Exactly.
My 23andMe said 100% European when I looked at it, and then I remember it got updated, and I got a message that said your 23andMe is updated. I was like, okay, that's weird. So I went and looked at it again. It said 99.9% European, and I was like, huh, that's weird. And then I looked down, it said 0.01% sub-Saharan African. And I was like, didn't Adam and Eve all technically come from there? So like, did they just
Would
now
would
remember this? Like,
explain the
oh, we
curly.
forgot to
It
pull
would
that
explain
stuff
the
from the Bible.
curls.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I've had a big afro before, but it wasn't like
Throwback.
it was
It's
pretty
throwback.
messy.
That's what that is.
Throwback. So when things changed with COVID, everyone wanted to get retainers in place because there was a lot of business that stopped. I think a lot of people. So I mean, my area of expertise is Amazon, and we had a lot of people. We actually didn't lose clients, but a lot of people were like, "We want to stop spending advertising. We want to stop doing all this stuff," and it actually made sense to keep going because of the demand that was coming on the back of that. But a lot of people didn't know that. And so we had to tell clients, one of our clients wanted to pull all ad spend. And we said, I get that you want to pull some
Mhm.
and you want to reflect on what's going on right now, but at least keep your branded ad spend because that's super important. You want to own that space on Amazon, but at least keep that in place because if you don't, other people could potentially come in and take over. But there are a lot of changes that
Mhm.
happen, just kind of general e-commerce as well for you, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think it was the same thing on my side because that by that stage, COVID had hit. And it impacted Europe slightly earlier than it impacted
Yes.
the US. But I mean, when I say slightly earlier, like by a couple of months, because
Yeah.
I attended, so I'm from the Shopify space, but I work with a lot of different e-commerce platforms. And Shopify have an event for the network called Pursuit. And the last event that Shopify ever did was Pursuit in Amsterdam. And at that stage, that was
Okay.
February 2020. At that stage, there was like COVID was a word and people sort of knew what it was, but it was very much it
Yeah.
was like a something that was impacting Asia more than anything else. And then it started to slowly creep over to like mainland Spain, like Italy and Spain. I think Italy really suffered really badly first. I don't know why. And then Spain. But what we didn't realize at the time that Amsterdam was actually a hotspot, obviously because so many people, thousands of
Yeah.
people traveled in for that. So then when we left, there was like emails that went out then being like, there's been cases, we're not doing any more events, go and get tested, blah,
Okay.
blah, blah. And then I moved country within a few weeks after that, like literally a few weeks later, probably had COVID.
There was a day.
Probably had COVID to be fair, because in hindsight, I think the symptoms were there. But because I was moving country and I had so much shit to do in a short amount of time, I just
Sure.
was like, well, I'm fucked anyway because I'm
I got it. I
exhausted.
got to do it.
So
When you got locked down anyway, when you got here, so you did your time in
exactly, and
quarantine.
all of the agencies. Then I had probably I think like 30% of my agencies were US based, and the rest were European. So my US based agencies were like, "What the fuck is happening over in Europe? Like it's going to hit us, but it hasn't really
Yeah.
impacted yet." So then I started bringing those two communities together, which is where some of the work that I do now was born: the roundtables and the masterminds, and building this
Yeah.
community of agencies that I've built.
Which I've come to those roundtables, and I'm a part of one of the masterminds that you're putting on right now, and I've really enjoyed myself because while I'm one of the only people that really is doing
Mm-hmm.
Amazon, I'm getting insight into what's happening into just general e-commerce, and
Mm-hmm.
that's super helpful for me because I can talk about, okay, what are the plans for my business? What are we going to be focusing on? What am I seeing in the e-commerce world? What should I be talking to our clients about who are on Amazon? Are they seeing some of the same things that some of your agency owners are seeing their clients experience in the e-commerce world? It just kind of helps me get a better
Mm-hmm.
perspective on what's happening in general because I'm sometimes so niche down. But really, what happens? I mean, what happens in brick and mortar that affected the growth in e-commerce? So many people. I mean, it was like I think e-commerce as a percent of total sales in the U.S. jumped by 4% from quarter one in 2020 to quarter two, and so it went from 12 to 16% of total sales. But it had only been growing by like 0.4%. So it means 8 to 10 years worth of growth
Mm-hmm.
on the e-commerce side, rapidly. There was actually a day in March. It was March 13th. And I think that was a Thursday. And that's when like across every account that we're managing in Amazon, there was like this big dip because that's like when I think mandates started
Mm-hmm.
coming out from the CDC. I know that Ohio, where I'm at, was very close on the tails of that because I was supposed to be rehearsing for playing at this church on that weekend, and they were like, "Hey, we're changing things up just because of what's going on, but we'll keep you posted. We're definitely going to have service." And then it was like an hour later, "Hey, we're not really sure what's going on, but we'll let you know." And then an hour later, it was like everything's off, it's canceled, and that was like the shutdown of stuff. And so I went home from wherever I was working, and that was like the last time I went out for many months. But that the changes happened, so there was that huge dip, but then by April, things were like skyrocketing up.
Because everybody panicked, right? I think through like March and April a little bit, everybody sort of panicked, and everybody's like,
They
let's,
went out to the stores, bought everything they
yeah,
could.
just 14 years worth of toilet rolls stored in the sheds. It was
Right.
just like absolutely mental. Like people do stupid shit when they panic. And then everybody, especially on my end of stuff, because the agencies I was working with and the agencies that were coming my way, it's like everything is frozen. So I think the general
Yeah.
consensus was then, well, people don't want to spend, but they still need the service. And in hindsight, when shit stopped was the time, those are the businesses, the ones that push through are the ones that are in the up and up now. The ones that paused, they had a
Yep.
much longer time to get going because at that time, the cost for acquisition across the board, so whether it was Amazon costs or the ROAS, whatever it is,
Yeah.
it was so much greater. There was just such a better return on that because the market wasn't as saturated. So those agencies that encourage their customers to push through, in some cases, some agencies said, look, we're not going to charge you because I mean, in your line of work, you're usually charging a flat rate and then a return on spend. And a lot of the
Right.
agencies that I work with that would have that kind of model for advertising spend, we're just like, we're not going to charge you a flat rate. We're just going to take a higher percentage on the return. But we're going to
Okay.
keep pushing. We're going to keep moving things along. I mean, I think it took like, it really paused things for Q2. Like Q2 of 2020 was like, it was just a big freeze, and then things started to thaw, and then it just exploded. The problem
Yeah.
was that now we're Q3 2021. I don't know where
Yeah.
the time's gone.
I know. Crazy.
And
Yeah.
this quarter has been, even from the top, even from some of the big platforms that keep the communication down, this quarter has been one of the quietest quarters in a long time, because I think last year everybody just was so hot and heavy, and now that we're going into the sales season, people are kind of just, they've done all the stuff and invested all the money they need to invest that they would have invested elsewhere, whether it's in-person costs or events or whatever. And now, because we've got Black Friday around the corner, it's just like, let's just cruise control now for this quarter and then
Yeah.
ramp up. Because I'm on the agency side of it, I see a lot of my agencies were like, we've got fuck all in the pipeline. Like, there's nothing coming in. So it's been really interesting. It's been really, really interesting, just to see how much the pandemic has just impacted. Of course, I don't want to make this all about the pandemic, because that's all everybody's talking
Well,
about.
but no, but you're right. I get that, and because it's like, you get people. It was funny when I'm very active on LinkedIn, and it was like 6 months in, everyone was like, "So, how are you doing through the pandemic?" And I was like, "Where were you like 6 weeks in? Like, if you really cared about how I was doing in your sales pitch, you would have said like, hey, pandemic's hitting." There are a lot of people I know that changed business models right during that
I did
time,
it.
or they,
I pivoted my entire
yeah,
business because of the pandemic. My business model was in-person workshops followed by a 3 month like coaching program to fix problems
okay.
within the business.
And you moved everything
I had
virtually.
no
You
option.
had to.
I had
Yeah.
all of these, and I, like you said before, like I'd moved to Gran Canaria. So one of the reasons I moved to Gran Canaria, of course, was my husband wanted to move here, but also being in a location where it's kind of isolated. It's an island, small vibe, raising a family, especially raising a mixed race family. You want to be conscious of where you're going to be raising that child, that that's something that's
Yeah.
celebrated as opposed to penalized.
Sure.
So all of those things that
Yeah.
you need to think about. But also, if I want to build this business out, that I can, rather than me going and traveling, because I was traveling all over the place. I was traveling to New York, Sweden, Germany, like all over the place to go and do these workshops, Australia, and then create a location like Gran Canaria that people can come and actually have downtime. Because as you know, I
That's what I think is cool.
super
Yeah.
attractive. I have a group of agencies coming. I think there's like
Thank you.
20 of
My
us.
mom says I'm good looking too.
Okay, sure, why not? Why not? It's about what's on the inside. I mean, the truth.
She's very well, no, what's on the inside's terrible. The
The
outside
truth
I'll
is,
say that's
Michael,
better.
as long as you just remind yourself that you've got a great face for radio and podcast, that's all that matters.
And I'm gonna do super well.
You're going to be fine, because the
Yeah.
podcast, they can't see you, so it's totally fine.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Well, they'll see this, but the people that are listening on Apple Music,
Yeah,
podcasting, I have a really dark skin tone, very big afro, and I'm
extremely good
from
looking.
and I'm from Spain. Who knew?
You just described. I
Actually,
think you just described me.
I'm pseudo Irish. At least that's according to
Well,
what you say.
no,
Who like
yeah,
150%.
that's entirely accurate. You don't even know how to say Irish names properly in our roundtable calls.
Yeah, yeah. I can't say my own name properly. Apparently,
True. Maher. How do you say it? Maher?
Mar, Mar, Mar.
Maher. Yeah, that's very American. It's Maher. But
That's
okay.
the Gentile way of
That
saying
is
it.
the Gentile way. But yeah, so my
Yeah.
business model, and I thought, okay, Gran Canaria, people can come here. And I had 4 agencies lined up for workshops over a 5 week period. And the way I did my
And were you
workshops,
doing those workshops inside, like for the agencies inside their agency, or is it like okay?
so I would go for like a day and a half on location. So whether I went to Amsterdam, Germany, America, wherever it was, and then I would have
Mhm.
I have a framework that I run through and do these workshops. Pretty intense for 2 days. In some cases, they used to come
Okay.
to me in Dublin. In a lot of cases, I would go to them if I'm spending more time with their team. It's just like 2 days, 2 or 3 days where it's like really in depth, or 2 days in depth actually is more accurate. Then as soon as COVID hit and I had these workshops lined up, and I was just like, I said to all these guys, let's just put things on pause for a month. I just moved country. It was super fucking hot. I'm Irish. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, I get sunburned from a strong
Yeah.
lamp. So let alone the actual sun. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to
Yeah.
hashtag chill for a month and acclimatize. Again, I think in hindsight, probably was COVID. But I thought it was just getting
Okay.
used to this hot sun. And when I say hot sun, it was like 22 degrees. And I was literally boiling from the inside out because in Ireland, anything more than 12 degrees centigrade, it's tropical. So that's like
And for everyone who's in the US, 22 is like maybe 80 to 90, I think, degrees
something
Fahrenheit.
like that. And I'm used
So
to probably around 50 or 60. And that's like borderline. Like you need to get the SPF out because shit's about to get crazy.
yeah, I need to get SPF 150 because the sun made a peak around the cloud. If I'm, almost like
Exactly.
you're like a vampire. That's like what
Yeah.
real Irish
Well,
people
not
are.
anymore. I mean, look, this is the real Irish skin. It's like a completely different color. I'm like,
This is a family show, okay?
sorry, I just
You
showed my
can't just.
shoulder. Oh my God. God forgive me.
This
God
is a
forgive me.
Puritan show,
Yeah,
Rachel.
apologies.
I'm just
For
kidding.
those
Um,
listening on the podcast, that was a quick shoulder
it
pop.
was very racy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that shoulder pop was mental.
I actually think my wife and daughter, they got very sick in January, February of 2020. And of course, everything that was going on in China was like November,
Of
December.
course.
Well, there was, and that's like a time when kids are always getting strep and flu and all that kind of stuff. But my daughter had already previously been sick, and then she had a terrible cough, and she had it for like probably
Mm.
8 weeks. I kid you not. It wasn't terrible, but it was still lingering. And she was negative for flu, negative for strep, and they were testing for pertussis because they're like, "What is this? We don't know what it is." She was negative for that. My wife and I are convinced that both
But
her and my
you could
daughter
get
had
tested for
COVID
antibodies
back
because they'll
then.
be in your system.
But that's true, but by the time we figured that out, the antibodies would have already been
Yeah,
down by
true.
like a significant amount, and so we wouldn't have known. But we really think that spread because it went through the school like wildfire, and we're just like we have no idea what this could be. It just was like this mystery thing. So I think looking back, similar to your experience, it was
Yeah,
like that had to have been there had to have been something related to that.
exactly. Almost certainly when you hear, I actually have a friend now, right now who's very bad asthmatic, very serious asthma. He's just got COVID and he's been
Oh
out 3
man,
weeks and he is fucked. I mean, he is just really not well at all. So thank God. I mean, I feel so bad for him because he went to meet another friend of ours because it was his birthday and went to meet him for like lunch and caught it somewhere. So not pleasant,
man,
not pleasant at all. So for me, I had to significantly pivot my business for sure. I had to change everything
yeah.
almost overnight because I said to all the agencies, let's just pause things for a month or so and see how this shakes out. And they all just said to me, I don't want to pause. We've got a quiet
Oh
pipeline
wow,
right
okay,
now. The things are quiet. Not a lot of projects are launching. Now is the perfect time for me to really focus on my business and get things whipped into shape. And to be
yeah,
honest, in actual fact, all of those clients, so there was five of them, and that was April 2020. All five of them are still at agencies that I work with. Different capacities.
okay.
Three of them I work really closely with, and two more high level. But all five agencies I still work with. But having
Most
to,
people when you change when there's a pause, I feel like there's a big change, people want to pause. And if you can pivot and move quickly, I know when I first started selling on Amazon and selling on different marketplace channels, I was very resistant to change. And that hurt my business because I thought, oh, well, this is like when Amazon was really wanting people to start fulfilling stuff in Prime. I was like, well, Amazon just wants to make more money because they're getting more of a percentage off of it. And maybe that was true, but people are so much more active that are Prime members. Prime members spend 2.5 times what non-Prime members do. So it really was the right move. And I was so resistant to change that actually hurt my business in the long run. And so in this agency side of my business, I've said we're just going to embrace it. If there's something that's going on, something new that Amazon's rolling out, we're going to tackle it. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, we're going to know more about what they're thinking for the future, and we're going to have a better understanding of what does and what doesn't work. And so I think it was smart for those agencies to say, and you to just be like, all right, well, like let's keep going and just find a way to make it happen instead of like pausing and breaking everything down and saying, how are we going to do this? Like, I think most quick changes like that, it's not necessarily a well thought out change. It's just how can we make things work, and that ends up developing into something a lot bigger, something that can be sustainable just by saying what's going to work right now.
to be honest, I think that that is a good lesson just for being an entrepreneur, just in business. It's one of the
Yeah.
reasons that I jumped ship or parted ways with the agency that I was running as COO, and I was a big part of that agency, and it built up a huge network and partners. And But for me, it's just like in business, when you never stay stationary, no matter what it is that you're doing. If you're staying stationary, you're moving backwards. So for me, it's like to
Yeah.
stop. And I know that's like sometimes it's like good to like just pause and see what happens. But in business, I feel like that's never the way to do things. You need to like break shit and you need to knock on doors. And if doors close, then you need to go in another path. Staying stationary is the only time that you're going to, it's not even that you achieve nothing, you actually regress, I find, just in terms of
Okay.
confidence. And I just think the smart thing to do is like, let's just keep moving forward. Even if it's like at a slower pace, you still need to be moving forward, because what happens is you have other people that are stopping around you. You're going to be ahead. And I think for me, that's one of the greatest lessons as an entrepreneur and running a business. And all of the entrepreneurs that I have the pleasure and luxury of working with, it's about pushing forward. And it's just like, I don't really feel confident right now. I'm a little bit nervous. Like, fuck it, just go for it. What's the worst thing that's going to
I
happen?
think there's a big difference between reflecting and planning
Mm-hmm.
and pausing, because you can still have forward momentum and
Mm-hmm.
say, all right, I'm going to take this day, I'm going to take this week to just
Mm-hmm.
review and say, okay, is what we're doing working, or how can we make adjustments and change? So I think that I 100% agree with you. And I also would say there's something everyone knows about IQ, intellectual quotient. How smart are you? Everyone's hearing more about EQ. How emotionally, intelligent are you? But there's also something as an entrepreneur that's called AQ, or a diversity quotient. And that's just how much shit can you take as an entrepreneur? How much can you stand to how much can you withstand that's coming your way? And I think having a high adversity quotient is
Mm-hmm.
something that makes entrepreneurs more successful, because they're able to say, okay, I deal with failure is something that happens. It's a regular part. And if you don't get so caught up in that, you're going to see successes as well. But again, to your point, if life is really about the journey and it's not about the destination, you're always going to be moving. So if you're upset with where you're at right now, wait 5 minutes, wait, 5 months,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully things are in a different place if you're continuing to move, because the scenery will constantly change.
For sure, for sure. And it is like running a business, whether you're running a business. A lot of the agencies that I work with, a bit like yourself, they are solo entrepreneurs. I'm a solo entrepreneur. And there's other agencies that have the luxury of then working with a business partner or working with multiple business partners. Either way, it has its strengths and weaknesses. The first agency I ever
Sure.
worked with, were brother-in-law, and that had its strengths, but it also had its weaknesses. And I have some people that work with a co-founder, and they're like, I would never do this alone. And I have people who work, they're solo, and they're like, I would never do
You're like,
this with
I'd
a
never
business.
do it.
I could never do it with a business partner. I mean, I have my husband and we run the business together, but he's very much in the background. But in terms of like a day to day making those decisions together, I'm a total renegade. So I just do whatever I think is the best thing to do.
I've done both, and I feel like it really just depends upon the partner. Like if you have someone, especially in your case, like you said, your husband's a planner, he's more in the background. You're the one that's out front, you're the face of the business and the shoulder of the business apparently. But you're the one that's out front, that's kind of, leading and running things. That's a pair that works really well together. If you've got two front runners and they're constantly vying for attention, that's going to be difficult. If you've got two background people and no one's leading from a sales or marketing perspective, that's going to be a problem. So I think it has to be a good match, and it has to be the right person. And if I think it's smart too. If hey, I'm the person that wants to get out in front, and I don't really want to have to wait on someone else to get something approved, and that's what works for you, then go out and do that. You're still going to have to build a team of people that are, I guess, if you're the quick start, that's one of the that's one of the terminology that's in a personality test called the Colby A assessment. It talks about where you were at birth, what you were meant to be. And so if you're a quick start, you're out there, you're doing things, you're making mistakes, but you're figuring it out. If you've got someone that if you're going to still have to find people that are going to be more operationally sound, they're going to perfect things and get them better. You might say, hey, here's an early prototype, now fix this, I'm going to go on and move to the next thing, you guys make that work better. You're still going to have to find those people, they just aren't necessarily going to be partners.
And that's another good point, because if that's the case, so for example, if you're running a brand or running a retail business or whatever it is, and it's just you, or even if you have a business partner, find experts. Like, go and
Right.
find experts to help and advise you on certain stuff that you don't know. And I think that's the smart thing. What makes, from my experience, I work with agency owners and entrepreneurs, but those leaders, the best leaders, are the ones that know where their strength is. And in most cases, your strength is like direction, vision, creativity, like looking at the big picture, what scale looks like. The details, the nuts and bolts of it, should be of no interest to you after you scale past a certain size. And the more that you live into where your potential is in terms of being a visionary, the more then you should lean into people. So whether it's people in-house that you hire that team out-house, or you go and work with, for example, if it's a brand that's working selling on Amazon, they go and then work with an Amazon specialist who
Yeah.
knows how to maximize the money that they're investing rather than trying to figure that in-house. And then you have a team of in-house for doing in-house stuff. It's just about being smart because you don't need to have all of the solutions. And I think that's what makes really good entrepreneurs, really good business owners, is the people that know this is where I'm shit hot. For me, I know that I'm shit at finances. I fucking hate, I mean, you know this.
Yep.
I just can't be arsed sending out invoices. All my invoices are like 6 weeks late, and my accountants are like, oh my God, you're running a business. And I'm like,
I was like, hey, are you going to charge us for this thing? And you're like, I thought I already sent
did I
that
not
out. I
send
didn't
that 2 months
know.
ago? No. And I'm like, oh, whoops. I think I created it somewhere, but I don't think I sent it.
But I totally get that. Like, I don't know anything about, I learned about finances and accounting because I had to, but I found someone that was great and he's helped me even from a business perspective. He's been like a business mentor to me, my accountant. And so I hold him in high regard and I worked with him for maybe 7, 8 years now. And he's been incredible for me, helped me, just taught me simple stuff. Like I'm not a business, I didn't go to school for business. I got a college degree in Asian studies. I'll let you know when I start using that.
In
But
what?
I in Asian studies, generalized studies of Asia. That's essentially what it was. I took
Like,
Japanese for a long
was
time.
it like
Yeah,
Asian studies, like food or language or culture, or just a bit of everything?
a bit of everything. Not so much the food part. That would have been cool. But I took Japanese for so long, high school and college, and I was like, I want to get the heck out of college. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. I hate this place. And I was like, what do I have the most credits for? And it's like, well, you could get a generalized Asian studies degree. And before they said degree, I was like, yep, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. And so I still haven't used that, much to my chagrin. But I became an entrepreneur instead. So that was anyone that's got an Asian studies degree right now, if you're not double majoring, you're planning to become an entrepreneur at some point in your life,
Yeah,
or
for
just
sure.
work
For
yourself to death.
sure.
It's going to be
Yeah.
one of those two
I always
things.
tell people I'm an entrepreneur through default. It's just because working for other people is so frustrating for me. I'm working for other people, not working with, but working for other people because
Working for
they just are too slow. And I just got so frustrated that I'm like, okay, I can see what the plan of attack is. And I'm then being held back because of
And if someone
bullshit
doesn't have
bureaucracy.
vision, then you're just going on and on. And I want to see progress. I don't want to just work for the day to day and just keep doing day to day stuff. I'm like, I want to be out there. I want to have vision. I want to say, okay, let's get our hands dirty. If this doesn't work, then we'll try something else. I don't care, but I want to be out there and I want to be pushing. So I totally get that.
Yeah. But entrepreneur by default, I think we're both in the same boat. I didn't study any business. I didn't even do business studies in school, like when I was younger, when I was a teenager.
Nope.
Didn't do any of it. I can just about count because I have a calculator. Like that will help me get
I
past
learned how to
that.
balance the checkbook in high school, and then that was pretty much my finance and career.
No, I wouldn't even do that. I don't even touch it.
And my wife handles all the finances now, so I don't even need that. It's like, well, I didn't need to learn how to balance a checkbook because I got married to someone who knew how to do it. You guys are idiots. You should have told us that in school. You don't have to learn.
When I first met Steve, one of the first things I said to him, I was like, just to let you know, we were just dating at the early days. When it comes to the money and the numbers, I'm not interested. I don't want to deal with it. I don't
I
want to
want
talk.
this is like
Can
a
you
job
just
interview. Like, I need a husband, but I also want a financier
can you
too.
just like manage that shit? And I was very good with money. Like I saved a lot, but I just don't
Sure.
want to deal with it. Like where it was being invested and where it was going and what we were doing with it. And I said at the very start, we were only dating a few months. And I'm like, I don't want to deal with any of that shit. You deal with it. And
What
he's
did he
like,
say?
fine. He loves numbers.
Great,
So I was like,
man.
perfect.
That was a legit match made in
And he's
heaven.
like, I don't want to deal with kitchen stuff. I don't want to cook. And I'm just like, I love cooking. Perfect. You deal with the numbers. I'll deal with the foods. It's fine.
Great. Yeah. I told my wife, I was like, I'm going to handle everything in the bedroom. I don't even need you. I'm going to do it all on myself. And if you can handle
When you say
stuff,
handle
the rest
everything in
of
the
the house,
bedroom,
then
you
we'll
mean
be good.
like making the bed with hospital corners.
No, I mean like the intimate part of the relationship. I'm like, I'll take care of that myself. I don't
You're not
even need you for that.
necessary. No. So your child
I'm just
is
saying,
immaculate conception.
I've got two hands. Immaculate Conception. Yeah, that's actually, I have another podcast that's starting called Immaculate Conception, and it's going to walk through the journey of my daughter being born.
Is that your daughter just walking past?
It's not going to, yeah, that's pretty much it. So, Rachel, if people want to find you, where would they look? Like under 150 sunproof? Sunscreen, are they looking into the Blarney Stone? Where are they going to find you?
Is 150, is that a real thing? Is there such a thing as 150 SPF?
No, I think 100 might be the highest.
And
I
100
don't
is
know.
just like the number is only in relation to how long it lasts for. I think
It's something like that. Yeah, I don't know. I just know that I put on, I just can't, I know that I have to put on at least 30 or higher.
okay. I just know that
No oil,
I'm
no suntan
no, no,
oil.
no. Sunflower oil is not a good idea. No, I've
Yeah.
made that mistake many times. Where can you find?
You think you're gonna tan, and then you just burn like a lobster, and then turn back into a white tilapia.
Oh no, at least I turn into a bronze goddess pretty quickly, but I just have to go like 50 shades of red first, and it's
Okay.
just like the sun just slowly hits me, and I'm like outside for 50 minutes. I'm like, oh, that was a nice cool day. It wasn't too hot, and I come in and I
Yeah.
literally look like I've been, yeah, I've been
Look at
burnt.
this microphone. Yep.
Exactly. I'm pretty Irish in that way. Where can they find me? LinkedIn, Rachel Jacobs. I think my name is it's Rachel Jacobs on LinkedIn. Hope so, because
Yeah,
that is
it
my
is.
name. Okay, that's good. It's not like I have a spy name. Or my website, e-commerce partnerships, either or.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you always bring a lot of liveliness and apparently a little bit of skin to the show.
Yeah, bit
So
of a
we'll have to
shoulder
have you back on
action.
and see that. We'll have to see that other shoulder.
Oh, no, I'll be charging you for that one.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming on, everyone. This is the Longer Game, where we talk about retail. We talk about what's changing in the retail game, what's new, what's old, what's being redone, or sometimes we talk about the pandemic, or sometimes we talk
Immaculate
about
conceptions.
bedroom
Yeah.
habits. Yeah, it just really depends. But thank you guys for joining us, and girls. You can catch Rachel on LinkedIn, Ecommerce Partnerships. Is it
Yeah.
.com? Ecommercepartnerships.com. That's a pretty clutch URL, by the way.
Thank you. It actually came to me in a vision as I was cutting onions in the kitchen. True story.
And did you just go right? Did you just go right to
I
like
was chopping
GoDaddy or
onions and
wherever?
my eyes were streaming. I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm going to cut my finger. This finger's is a goner. I'm totally going to lose a finger here. And then all of a sudden, it was like in my mind, this word just popped up, and I'd left the agency by like 3 or 4 days. And I saw the
Okay.
word e-commerce partnerships in my mind, and I'm like, oh, it's the Lord speaking to me. I'm delivered. Get on the computer. I go on to whatever site, domain.com.
Onion fingers all over the
Yeah,
computer.
exactly. Onion smells for days on the laptop. And then I just went on domain.com, ecommercepartnership.com. Yeah, fuck it, I'll buy it. And then I went to my husband. I was like, the weirdest things happened. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this, but I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
So random.
Just like he had been planning to move to Gran Canaria for 6 months and you didn't even know.
Yeah, but my example is completely.
Yours was
It was like
immediate.
immediate. I'm going to buy this domain, and then come in and be like, I feel like I don't know what's next, but this is like the first step towards something. And then a week later, I had the entire business unfolded in my mind, and I started speaking to people.
You can find Rachel at ecommercepartnerships.com. If you're an agency owner and you're in the e-commerce world, Amazon, whatever the case might be, you should definitely check out one of the free roundtables that she does once a month. They're a lot of fun. You get a chance to talk to other e-commerce agency owners and see what's going on in the world and connect. This has been The Longer Game. We're out. Peace out. Thank you for listening to The Longer Game. We genuinely appreciate your time. And if you want to connect with us, please reach out to thelongergame.com. You can fill out a contact request form there. You can also find us on majority of the social media platforms, except for Twitter. That's the only one that we're not really on. This show is brought to you by my agency, Cartology. We're helping brands accelerate growth and become profitable on Amazon. If you'd like to know more, go to thinkcartology.com, fill out a contact form, and we'll get on the phone. That's what it's all about, connecting with you and building a relationship. This show is also brought to you by Arch DevOps. They are the ones that are helping make all the logistics of this podcast happen. We are so thankful for them. If you want to get your podcast up and running and you want to automate as many things as possible, go to archdevops.com. That's ARCHDEVOPS.com. and reach out to them. They can be super, super helpful. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you have a great rest of your day and be blessed.